Hello and welcome to another video from Fudge Learn about Oracle eBusiness Suite. In this video I'm going to be switching focus slightly because I'm going to be talking about release 12.2 but in the context of the operational efficiency opportunities that are available and that you may wish to consider having completed an upgrade. When it comes to upgrading to release 12.2, many organisations decide to keep the scope quite tight, and they do this to minimise risks. But it does mean that they don't or aren't able to realise some of the new features and functionality that come with release 12.2. So once having completed that upgrade, they may then start to think about, okay, is there anything in here that we can actually now start using, that we can actually use and get benefit from and maximise our investment. Hopefully on upgrading you've gone for one of the most recent versions, either 12.2.9, which came out in August of 2019, or the latest version, which is 12.2.10. But don't worry if you haven't, because the online patching capability means that if you find that there's some functionality in a later version that you want to use, then it's much more straightforward to move to that version. But don't worry, if you do find that there's some functionality in a more recent version that you want to use, then the online patching capability means that it's much more straightforward to apply the additional patches to move up to that latest version. Okay, so before we start talking about leveraging operational efficiency opportunities from release 12.2, let's first take a look at what could cause us challenges to that. What could inhibit operational efficiencies? The first one we need to consider is a biggie, and it's business areas continuing to use external reporting solutions. And the most obvious one that comes to mind is Microsoft Excel. And we're not just talking about accountants that really love to use Excel. We're also talking about other teams within the business. So say, for example, you might have your procurement team that've got a spreadsheet with a list of all the suppliers on it. Or you might have an accounts payable team that export a list of invoices so that they can manipulate it and do some analysis. So say, for example, the accounts payable team might be wanting to do some analysis of the invoices that are outstanding for a particular supplier. They might export that list of invoices into Excel to do some analysis, or you could have a purchasing team that have a central list of suppliers that's held on a spreadsheet. Also, we've got manual repetitive processes. So if you can imagine, you've got an accounts payable team that are entering supplier bank account information, or you've got your purchasing team that are setting up new suppliers. These are things that have got a high administrative overhead. You've also got process bottlenecks. So these are things like where you've got three-way matching that's required before an invoice can be paid. So you've got your purchase order that's been created, you've got your invoice that's been entered and it matches your purchase order price, but you're still waiting for the quantity to be entered for the receipting. And if you've got a user that forgets to do that and regularly neglects to do that, then that's a process bottleneck in itself. Communication and collaboration issues can often inhibit operational efficiency. An example that comes to mind of that is the invoice that can't be paid and is on hold because there's an issue with the distribution, and that could be because there's an account code that's been deactivated and that hasn't been communicated out to the relevant teams or relevant individuals. Poor operational efficiency can also be due to a lack of confidence or capability with the end users. And this can come about for various reasons. I mean, you might have people that are new to the team, so it's understandable that they might lack confidence and capability initially. Or you could have team members who have been there some time, but they didn't receive the original training when the system was implemented. So they've only been trained based on what someone else has told them, and they could have been trained in bad practice or processes that aren't as efficient. Data can be an inhibitor of operational efficiency. If there's so much data, as is often the case in an Oracle eBusiness Suite instance, then it can sometimes be difficult to see the wood for the trees. Difficult to identify the right performance metrics, and difficult to do analysis to identify systems or processes that need improvement. So if you've completed your upgrade and you're now thinking about implementing some improvements and some efficiency gains, then where do you start? Well, there certainly is a lot of information out there. Based on my understanding of the new features and functionality in Release 12.2, and also having spoken to some of our customers, I believe there are 6 key areas where you can leverage some great operational and process efficiencies. These are the eBusiness Suite mobile app, the iSupplier portal, Oracle sourcing, advanced collections, human resources, and the enterprise command centres, which actually cut across a few different areas. So let me get started with firstly talking about the eBusiness Suite mobile application and its benefits. The app is available for both Android and Apple phones, and you'll find it in the relevant app store. The minimum versions that the app will work with are 12.1.3 or 12.2.3. The app is available for self-service HR, and that's from eBusiness Suite version 12.2.5. There's no additional technology required other than the relevant server patch needs to be applied. So that would be the patch 12.1.3 or 12.2.3. The app can be used on iPads, tablets or phones, and it can be used to carry out a range of activities such as approve requisitions or record sickness absence, for example. So why might you think of using a mobile app instead of just logging on to the Oracle eBusiness Suite itself? I can think of a couple of scenarios where it might be useful. Say, for example, you have employees that need to perform receipting when goods have been delivered. They might work in a warehouse or they might work in a loading bay, so may not necessarily have ready access to logging on to Oracle eBusiness Suite. So in those circumstances, it would be useful to be able to use a mobile app, and they could simply just log on through their mobile phone and perform the receipting. Alternatively, another scenario could be you might have managers that are out and about and need to perform some approvals, say for example of an employee that's requested some holiday, and if they've got access to a mobile app, it gives them the option that they can approve it there and then rather than waiting for when they return back to the office. In this demo, I'm going to be using the mobile app to perform receipting of goods that have been ordered through iProcurement. So let's get logged in, and then I can show you what information you can actually get access to from within the app itself. So I'm logging in as an operations user. And as you can see, we've got a list here of this user's requisitions. It shows some key requisition information, requisition number, what the requisition's for, the status of the requisition and value of the requisition. So let me just pick this requisition 18273. So I can see that this requisition is pending approval with Catherine Baker, and I can see the need by date and some additional description information. So now I'm going to search for a requisition that we're going to pretend that this user has raised. The requisition number is 18348 and it's for a monitor. And if I go into view the detail for that requisition, here it is. You can see the justification that I put on there as well. And that it's been approved by Connor Horton today. If I return back to the requisition information, and then we can see the details of the purchase order, and then if we click on that, we can then see the specific order information, so the need by date, delivery information and project information. And then if we return back one step, to perform the receipting, it's simply a case of clicking on that tick in the top right corner. The app can also be used for self-service HR purposes. So before we see a demo of that, let's first talk about how it can be used and the benefits. So the app's going to be useful for employees, particularly those that work remotely, say engineers that are out in the field, or staff that, for example, work in a warehouse and don't get regular access to a desktop computer. They'll be able to use the app to view their employee information and make changes to it if they need to, view their absent information and submit a request for holiday, for example. Also through the app, employees can view their payslips and P60s. The app can be used by managers to do things like search for other people within the organisation. They can also view the information of their team members and review employee absence requests as well. Administrators are able to check out how the app is being used. So they can look at which users are using the app and what kind of devices they've got. Let's take a look at the app in action when used for self-service HR. And we're logging in as an individual who is the vice president of the organisation, and the first page we're presented with is our personal details. The pencil icon in the top right will allow us to edit our personal information if we want to. The next section down provides details of who our direct manager is. And then below that we've got details showing that we've got 4 direct reports, and we've also got an approval that's pending. Now let's go back to the main menu and check out the information about those 4 direct reports. So we just click on the bars at the top left and select My Team. So we're presented with the information about those 4 direct reports. We can drill down and view further details about those, and you can see that that individual has got 2 direct reports, Linda Drew and Martin Steele. Okay, so let's take a look in a bit more detail at this individual's work history, so Smith Cranford's work history. And on here you're presented with his employment history, so you can see that he's had 3 roles at this organisation starting from the year 2000, and you can see a breakdown of the different grades that he's had and also the job titles. So now we're taking a look at the salary information that he's had historically. So let's imagine that we want to make a change to Smith Cranford's salary details. So to do that, from his personal information page, in the top right hand corner you'll see there's an icon of 2 people. So if we tap or click on that icon, it takes us into another page where we can make changes. So from this page we can manage the specific details in respect of this individual. So we're going to make a change that's going to be effective from the final approval date, and we're going to amend this individual's grade. So from the pick list I've chosen a new grade for him, so I've selected that grade and I'm just confirming the details in respect of that by adding some comments. I then tap or click on save and I get a prompt. Do I want to continue? Yeah, I want to save that, and then that change goes for approval. And once that's approved, it will then come into effect for that individual. To action or review pending approvals, then it's simply a case of going back to the home page and selecting pending approval. From here I can review the approvals that I need to action, so I've got 4 that I need to action. From here I can tap or click on either of those items to get more information and then complete my approval action. Let me just switch back to the home page of the app and I can show you how you can change between responsibilities. So if you tap or click on settings, then in the next screen tap or click on your responsibility, and I'm going to select employee self-service and then go back to the home page, and you'll notice from this home page now I've got the option which has appeared up above, and that's pay slips and also absences. So from here, this is where I can review my pay slips and P60s and then make an absence request if I wish to do so. Next, I'd like to talk to you about the iSupplier portal and its capabilities from release 12.2. And this is going to be relevant to you if your organisation deals with a lot of suppliers. So let's take a look at the benefits in more detail. And to be honest, I'm surprised that there aren't more organisations using the iSupplier portal, because it does have some really great benefits. It's a central point for holding and managing supplier data, and it can make the onboarding of suppliers a lot easier and a lot more efficient. It also makes it easier to verify supplier information. it can make the supplier onboarding process much easier and much more efficient. So say for example you're an organisation that uses suppliers such as electricians, gas engineers, plumbers, and you need to make sure that those people have got the right certifications. Then those suppliers can upload certificates and documents to prove their certifications into the iSupplier portal. There are two options for this. You can either have access to a supplier registration process from your own corporate website. So a supplier accesses through your website and then provides all the relevant details to register, or alternatively as part of the supplier onboarding process you can have your supplier with either access to the portal to upload and provide information themselves, or you can enter that information into the iSupplier portal as part of the onboarding and then attach any relevant documents that they've provided. Also, the approvals management engine can be used for managing the approval of changes to supplier information. So say for example it could be an internal employee that has amended the supplier address information, or an internal employee that's amended the supplier bank account information. And you can even have supplier administrators, so individuals that work for the supplier that have access to your iSupplier portal that can go in and update their own information in there, and those changes can then be routed to an internal employee for approval, say for example a buyer. Having a supplier administrator take this kind of action and update their own records really reduces the admin for procurement and payables teams. It also means that as the supplier is taking responsibility to make sure that their information is up to date, then there are less likely to be errors or incorrect information held. Okay, so let's move on and take a look at the iSupplier portal in action. Okay, so we're going to imagine that I'm someone who works in a procurement team and I've got a prospective new supplier and I need to enter their details. So I've logged into the iSupplier portal and I'm in the supplier registration area. So I'm going to enter the company name details, the tax country and taxpayer ID for the new supplier, and I've also entered the relevant contact information as well, so my contact name at the supplier and their email address details. So the next stage is to enter any further information that I want to provide about that particular supplier. You might notice that under the contact directory section, it's already defaulted the details of the contact that I entered on the previous page, as well as their email address. So next I'm going to enter the address details for this supplier. So it's just a case of clicking on create under the address book section. So in here I just enter all the relevant address information and then click on apply, and it returns back to the previous page where you can then see the address information has been populated. Now I'm going to add details of the products or services that I provide. So I'm going to select the category, which is brushes, and the subcategory, which is paint and varnish, and that's now updated. It's all very intuitive, so a supplier should find it pretty straightforward to enter the information. Now I've got the option, if I need to go away and find some details to put in here, I can click on Save for Later. Or if I'm happy with everything that I've input, I just click on Submit. That then fires off a notification to the buyer to let them know, so they can then complete their processing of that. So I've logged into Oracle eBusiness Suite as a buyer, and I've navigated to the supplier management responsibility, and then from here I go into prospective supplier registrations and I find the supplier registration that's just been completed. I can review the information that they've submitted and I can update that if I want to. If I'm happy with it, then it's simply a case of clicking on Go, and that confirms my approval of the information that they've entered. After approval, that supplier is converted into a supplier within Oracle eBusiness Suite and then can be selected and added to a requisition or a purchase order. So now let's take a look at that supplier within the system. So you can see here they are with their supplier number, and the information that was provided in iSupplier portal has transferred directly into the supplier record, as well as a supplier site being created as well. So all that is done automatically once the approval is actioned. Also, once the approval has happened, a notification is generated to the contact at the supplier to advise them that the registration and onboarding process is completed. This concludes our demo of the iSupplier portal and supplier registration. I certainly think that if you're an organisation that has a high volume of suppliers, then this has got the potential to save your procurement and purchasing team quite a lot of administration around supplier management. So it's certainly worth looking into introducing it. A module which is complementary to the iSupplier portal is the Oracle sourcing module. So let's take a look at the benefits of that in release 12.2 and also how it can work with the iSupplier portal. Oracle sourcing is really going to benefit those organisations that procure their goods or services using processes such as invitation to tender or request for proposal, or they may even use auctions. It really helps with collaboration because it provides a central repository for storing documents such as tender documents or proposals, and it makes it easier to share those out with other interested people within your organisation. So say for example the proposal is around an IT service, then it would make it a lot easier to share the responses with the members of your IT team. Also, if there are changes to the original requirements, then these can be applied easily and then communicated out to each of the interested suppliers. Sourcing works well with the iSupplier portal. It can really help to reduce the amount of admin involved because suppliers can use the portal to submit their bids, and this saves procurement teams from having to rekey information. The Enterprise Command Centre for procurement and its supplier analysis dashboard can also be used in conjunction with Oracle sourcing. So the dashboard can be used to obtain information about the performance of current suppliers, for example, and that could help to inform the decision making around the sourcing process. It also contains information about the supplier in terms of the spend with that particular supplier. So that could help to give the buyer leverage in terms of negotiating. So the supplier analysis dashboard that we're taking a look at now, that's going to be helpful to buyers if they're wanting to do some particular investigation work on that supplier. So say for example they want to look at doing some spend analysis and looking at particular items that are ordered through that supplier and looking at volumes. So they might be able to go back and renegotiate bigger discounts with that supplier if there's been an increase in volumes of a particular item that's being ordered, for example. As well as procurement history, this dashboard also shows relevant information about supplier performance. So as you can see, you've got two charts here that are helpful with that. So on the left, you've got overall supplier performance, and you can see it's a bubble chart, and you've got bubbles for each of the different suppliers, and it's showing information about deliveries, quality, and how much spend is with each of those suppliers. I hope this overview of the Procurement Enterprise Command Centre and its dashboards has been useful. We have produced another video on the Enterprise Command Centres which goes into quite a bit more detail, and it puts them into the context of the whole procure to pay process. So if you want more detail, then check out that video, which is available on the Fudge Learn website. Okay, shifting our focus, let's take a look, instead of suppliers, let's take a look at our customers now and the advanced collections module. So you might already be using Oracle Receivables and thinking, what are the benefits of using advanced collections with it as well? They're both seamlessly integrated, so you still get all the functionality for managing your customer billing through receivables, but what you can do with advanced collections is take that dunning and collections process that step further. With advanced collections, you can really refine your collection strategy. You've got the opportunity to create more specific and tailored rules. So say for example, you've been doing some customer analysis and a collections agent's discovered that you've got a customer who's got a mental health problem and that's been impacting their business and impacting their ability to pay. Then you can take that information and design a rule to take perhaps a more lenient approach to those kinds of situations. These rules can be linked to the automation of dunning letters, which will help to reduce the administration overhead for your collections team. You've also got the Enterprise Command Centre for receivables and its associated dashboards, providing information about outstanding balances and customer payments. These can help provide insights which inform your collections strategy. I think by using advanced collections with receivables and applying some of this new functionality and features will really help to improve cash flow. So let's now take a look at the ECC and the dashboards in action. So here we've got the outstanding receivables dashboard, and we're filtering on the ledger vision operations. We've got the key receivables information shown across the top, and we can see from the charts the transactions aging and top past few customers information. We can see that for Vision Construction we've got 1.9 million over 90 days outstanding.
So let's take a look and drill down further if we examine Hillman and Associates and take a look at what's happening with that customer. So towards the bottom of the dashboard, we've now got a transaction list which has been refreshed to show the data specific to Hillman and Associates. You can click on the drop down to select various different types of information, and we can click on the preview icon, which shows us a copy of the invoice that went out to our customer Hillman and Associates if we wanted to do a bit more analysis around the specific line items on that invoice and what was actually ordered by the customer. If we go back to that transaction list and look at that specific transaction by clicking on the transaction number, this will integrate directly in the receivables workbench. Okay, so we can see all the specific transaction information. Say, for example, we can look at any credits, perform corrections to line items, quantity values, and the integration means that there's no need to manually switch responsibility. In the dashboard, we can also refine our data further by using the information on the left. So we can filter by transaction information, transaction number, transaction date, or even amount. Let's have a look at the next dashboard, which is the billing process dashboard. So we've got two ledgers we're looking at here, and we're going to focus on the Vision Operations ledger again. So in our charts, we can see incomplete transactions, and in the other chart, we've got any pending adjustments. So we've got some pending adjustments for the customer business world. We can see that we've got 240 import errors, and towards the bottom of the screen you've got the specific details of the incomplete transactions line by line. We can see any import processing errors, and we can see specifically what they were. If we wanted to filter on a specific error type, then we can just click on that message. So let's have a look at that transaction 12004. This will take us into receivables, into the receivables manager responsibility, and we can see that manual transaction to customer CIC Management Incorporated. So we didn't have to switch responsibility, it automatically knew which responsibility was required to view that transaction information. We can, if we want, export that transactions list into a .csv file if you wanted to do some manipulation of the information in Excel. So let's go now and have a look at the payment process dashboard. This is going to show us information related to the receipts. So the dashboard is showing us that there are only 2 unapplied receipts for a value of over 5 million, and it's directing us to look at Hillman and Associates. So if we filter on them, then it becomes clear that 5 million is actually only one receipt. So we can do some further analysis now and look at that actual receipt in receivables and do some further analysis on that to see why it hasn't been applied. So here's the receipt, and we can see exactly the same information as we would if we went directly into that responsibility. Okay, so let's come out of here and we'll return back to the dashboard. As well as unapplied receipts, we can also look at remittances that require attention, as well as lockbox errors. Okay, so let's move on and let's have a look at the payment history dashboard now. Again, for the same ledger, Vision Operations, and at the top of the dashboard, you can see the key data in relation to payment history. So we've got weighted average days paid, weighted average days delinquent, we've got the number of paid receivables transactions, and if there were any applied receipts, then they would be shown there as well. The weighted average days paid and the weighted average days delinquent data is also represented here visually in these two charts. In the lower portion of the dashboard, we've got information specifically about paid transactions, and then on another tab, we've got payments information. You can use the headings across the top to reorder the data that's in that table. And of course, on the left-hand side of the dashboard, you can also filter using specific criteria. I think all this kind of information in this dashboard is useful for collection teams. Say if they're trying to do some analysis around payment trends for a specific customer, and understanding the delinquency behaviour of a specific customer. Let's now take a look at the period close dashboard. So in the period close dashboard, we've got information here that's going to help receivables teams to proactively manage issues that could potentially hold up period close. So we've got unaccounted events, we've got draft accounting, accounting errors, and untransferred journals. Let's have a look at some accounting errors. In the chart, we can see that we've got invalid receipts that have been created, and at the bottom of the dashboard, we can see specifically what those receipts are, and we can see some more detail about them. This unapplied receipt here on the second line, it's showing as unapplied cash. So we could use the dashboard to help us understand why that receipt is showing as unapplied cash. We're going to be producing a video that goes into more detail about this dashboard and the other enterprise command centres and dashboards that are available.
Now, we have already looked at some of the enterprise command centres and dashboards in this video, but I wanted to just talk to you about the specific benefits of them if you haven't already started using the enterprise command centres since upgrading to release 12.2. Firstly, it's worth mentioning that the enterprise command centres are provided for free with existing licenses. This means that if you are already using modules in Oracle eBusiness Suite, such as accounts payable or purchasing, then you can use the enterprise command centre associated with that. Also, because they use the existing eBusiness Suite security, this means that there's no additional security setup required. The Enterprise Command Center dashboards can also replace the need for running concurrent requests. For example, the Payables Enterprise Command Center dashboards provide a lot of information about payments that have been issued for invoices, and also if there are invoices on hold, then you can also investigate those and do analysis for those through the dashboard. I find that the dashboards are quite intuitive and easy to use, and the information that they display is presented in an easy to read format. So the charts and graphs and the lists of information are quite easy to understand. Also, unlike concurrent requests, the data in the dashboards is refreshed at regular intervals, and this happens automatically. So the user doesn't have to think about having to click on a button or run a program to repopulate the dashboard with the information. Whilst we're talking about the Enterprise Command Centres, I think it's also worth making you aware that there is an Enterprise Command Centre for HR. The Enterprise Command Centre for Human Resources was made available from version 12.2.9, and much like the other ECCs and dashboards, it provides near real-time data. That means that the data is populated by a process that runs at regular intervals. Say, for example, it can be set to run every 10 minutes. The dashboard is dynamic, so that means that dependent on what the user clicks on or selects within the dashboard automatically refreshes accordingly, and it integrates seamlessly with the HR data that is present in Oracle eBusiness Suite. Also, it's worth mentioning that the security rules and restrictions that are present in eBusiness Suite also apply to the Enterprise Command Center and dashboards. So users will only be seeing information that they're entitled to see. The dashboard provides key business data for HR professionals in the form of charts and graphs, and also employee person details. HR team members can drill down by clicking on tags in the tag cloud or items in the chart, and it can help them filter on specific information. Say, for example, if they're wanting to look at employees of a particular marital status, or employees that have a particular start date, for example. Okay, so let's summarise this and look at what are the key benefits that you should be expecting to get having upgraded to release 12.2. Firstly, for me, it's the opportunity to reduce your administration overhead with things like automating dunning letters or using the Enterprise Command Center dashboards to reduce the amount of queries coming into a team, like accounts payable, for example. The dashboards also provide additional information which will help with things like analysis and moving to a more proactive approach, like for example in payables, using the dashboards to resolve any issues prior to period close so that you're not firefighting. This also means that hopefully you should be able to reduce the amount of concurrent reports and requests that you run, because the dashboards provide more up-to-date information. Using the iSupplier portal provides the opportunity for a more efficient supplier onboarding process, combined with reducing the admin overhead for your procurement and purchasing teams. The changes introduced from release 12.2 provide definite opportunities for process improvement. For example, we talked about Oracle sourcing and how that can be used as a central repository for tender or RFP documents, saving time for procurement teams and buyers. Finally, don't forget that if you're using Oracle Receivables, then it's also worth thinking about using the advanced collections functionality, because from release 12.2 There are a lot of features in there that can really help improve your cash flow. I hope you found this video useful. If you're interested in finding more information about the Release 12.2 changes or on Oracle eBusiness Suite, then check out our website and also our YouTube channel. You can use this QR code to go straight to our website, and in YouTube, don't forget to click on subscribe and then on the bell, and you'll be the first to hear when we publish more video content.